In this video, I'll walk you through a simple example to show you the basics of navigating and using the Modules tab in dDesk to process and work on visual flows of data. The Modules tab allows you to create flows of data visually by dragging and dropping different building blocks onto the drawing board and connecting them together. I'll talk about the three basic building blocks of these drawings: raw channels, modules, and output channels. Data flows from raw channels into one or multiple modules, then is written back into output channels that you can view, reuse for further data processing, or export to use elsewhere. Raw channels are the original sources of data that we don't intend on modifying. Raw channels can store data coming from a variety of sources, including spreadsheets, external databases, or from sensors. You can read data from a raw channel, but you can't write new data to or overwrite the data of a raw channel with a module. Modules are programs that run within dDesk and process data for you. dDesk comes with a growing assortment of modules, and you can write your own if there's something you need that we don't have yet. Output channels store the results of calculations, and they can be freely written to or overwritten by modules. Every time you run your modules and you have a connected wire going into an output channel, the old data in the channel from the previous run of the modules is cleared so that you don't have data duplication whenever you rerun your modules. Now, to actually look at the example, I'll start off dragging the channels that I've made in advance onto the drawing board. I'll just expand the raw channels panel to see all of my available raw channels. When you hover over one of the channels in the list, you can see what columns the channel has. In this case, we can see that the ammonia channel has two columns. A column called ammonia, which is of type double, and a column called datetime, which is of type datetime. I'll drag all three of them onto the drawing board. Next, I'll expand the output channels panel to see all of the output channels. Just like with the raw channels, you can see the structure of a channel by hovering over it in the list. First, I'll drag the load channel onto the drawing board. Once you've placed a channel on the drawing board, you can see its details by hovering over it. I'll also drag min-month over. Expanding the modules panel, we see that unlike the raw and output channels panels, there are subpanels for different groups of modules. The modules are organized by which package they're a part of. You can create your own packages with modules that you write yourself, and they'll also show up in this list. I'll expand the periodic data modules subpanel to look at the modules from that package. One of the modules I'll be using for this demo is data averaging. Notice that when you hover over a module, it gives you a description. You can also search for modules using the search bar at the top. That's how I prefer to find the modules I want to use. So I'll search for data averaging through the search bar, and here it is. I'll just drag it onto the drawing board. Now that I've dragged it onto the drawing board, you can see two lines sticking out of the module. On the left side is the input to the module, where you can attach it to either a channel or to another module. On the right side is the output of the module, where you can attach it to either another module for further processing of the data or to an output channel to save the result of the calculations that it's performed. When you hover over the input, you can see what type of data the module is looking for. In this case, it's looking for data that has at least, but not necessarily just, a datetime and a double. When we hover over our ammonia channel, we can see that it has a datetime and a double, so we know we can connect these together. To connect them, simply click on the ammonia channel, then click on the input to the module, and they're now connected. You can right-click on a module and you'll get a menu. I'm going to take a look at the module settings to see what settings for the data averaging module I want to change. In the configuration window, you'll see a list of settings that can be changed. If you're unsure of what a setting does, you can hover over the name of the setting to get some extra information about it. In this case, when we look at the output location setting, you can see extra information that hopefully clarifies what it's doing. Right now, I'm just looking at the settings and they all look like what I want, since what I want to create is an hourly average of the ammonia, so I'll just hit OK to exit. Now, looking at the label of the block on the drawing board, data averaging. It's not as descriptive as it could be, since it doesn't tell me about what kind of output it's producing. It could be a minutely average, or a monthly average, or just about anything. So what I'll do is change the label to hourly ammonia, to make it easier to understand what's going on when you look at the drawing. Now I'll just drag on another copy of the data averaging module, and I'll search for and drag on two copies of simple manipulation of two time series, which, as we can see from its description, just performs a simple numerical operation between two time series. Just give me a moment to clean the drawing up a bit. And I'll find the last module I want, minimum period in dataset, and drag it on. What I want to do first is add these two flows together, so I'll wire them both into the module here. By default, this module will multiply two values together, so I have to change it to do addition. To do that, I simply open up the module settings and change the function from multiply to add. I'll also change the label to something more descriptive. How about flow A plus B? Then I'll wire the sum of the flows into the following data averaging module. I know from looking at it before for hourly ammonia that it defaults to an hourly average, so I'll just leave the configuration as it is and change the label to hourly flow. Now I'll multiply my hourly ammonia data with my hourly summed flow data, and that will give me the load. I also want to know the minimum month of the load, so I'll take the output of the multiply to not just the load channel, but also to the minimum period module. I open up the settings for the module and I see that by default it's a rolling min month, which I'm okay with, so I'll leave it as is. I'm now ready to run the modules, so I go to the bottom of the side panel and hit the Run Modules button. I've pre-prepared a dashboard setup to show all the relevant channels, so I can quickly go to the Dashboard tab and check out the results in the output channels versus the raw channels. The output channels are both on the bottom plot. It seems to have run properly, but I have a bit of a problem with the data from my ammonia raw channel. There are some values read from the sensor that are clearly outside of an acceptable range, and I'd just like to ignore those values, so I'll go back and filter them out. I'll just disconnect the channel from the module since I want to put another module between them. Then I'll drag Remove Data on, and change the configuration to filter out values greater than 35 or less than 0.5. I'll change the label to make it clear that it's doing that, then wire it all back up and rerun the modules. Going back to the dashboard, you can see that the bottom plot has the data filtered out with the values only going up to roughly 1 million, whereas the maximum was much higher before. You can see that I can pretty quickly test out different flows of data and different configurations. It can be a lot easier to get results like this here than in a spreadsheet, since it's clear what's going on when you can visually see the flow of data. Looking at the results a bit more, I don't think I like the fact that the minimum period doesn't align to a calendar month, so I go back to the modules once more and change min month to not use rolling averages. And there we go.